All right, we're back in action. Today I do have a review on Banadir 40 for you. I think I've taken enough time to collect my thoughts, and I've already made some great memories with this fragrance. I think those memories really just solidified me in my position and, finally got me to the point where, it was time to go ahead and record the review for you all. So as I quickly touched on in the introduction, I really did make some memories already with this fragrance, even with it being a sampler, 10 ml sample. I was able to take this to Northern California with me, Palo Alto area, to watch the BTS concert with some of my friends. I went to high school, maybe an hour and a half away from there. And I do visit occasionally, but haven't been back in the area for quite some time. So it's always nice to catch up with my friends. I value that we are still friends. A lot of high school friends don't always have that opportunity, or things just come up in life where you're not really in touch with those people in the same way. So yeah, just that in itself gave me a lot of opportunities to wear this fragrance. The temperature was perfect, those, I would say, low 80s, high 70s. So Blue Talisman or Banadir 40 really shines in that temperature, I would say. And also, not an offensive scent either. I would say even people who are newer to niche fragrance would really appreciate this scent. I didn't really have my friends spray this on, I wouldn't say, but I would just have them smell it from the cap, or if they smelled it when I was around them. The consensus generally was, this is just an easy to reach fragrance that, it's not going to be offensive, doesn't project too loudly, but I would say it's certainly noticeable and does garner attention because it does have this uniqueness and it does have this interesting structure of, pear, musk, sparkling citrus that, again, seems simple on paper, but I think is harder to achieve than a lot of us realize. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the video, but yeah, generally speaking, I just appreciate this fragrance for the memories I've already made with it. And I'm, easily gonna finish this. I'm already almost halfway through. Yeah, that's enough discussion on the memory so far. Let's go ahead and get it on tester and just talk about more of the profile. Woo. Oh my goodness. Jeez, that thing's good, man. I'll go ahead and let this sit just for a few moments, and I do want to talk about the, sample atomizer, sample vial overall from Banadir. So I do believe at the moment Banadir is having some issues with their inventory in terms of the usual sprayers they would use for their 10 ml samples. It's usually a much thicker glass with a darker tint, and it also does have the Banadir logo printed on there as well. Right now they just have these more simple glass vials with the gold cap and gold atomizer. Definitely sufficient enough. I think the spray pattern is super nice and really good for a sampler. Another bonus, you could refill this with whatever fragrance you want after the fact if you're interested in that. Maybe a slight step down from the, intended design that they normally go for, but by no means would I really find this to be a detriment to the brand or, the experience I have with the fragrance. It's just not showing as much branding for Banadir, I guess. So not a big deal. Hopefully they can get that resolved, but that's just an issue at this moment, this time of recording. So that's not always going to pertain to you guys out there who purchase this at a later date. All right, enough about the sprayer. Let's go ahead and smell the iconic DNA right here, Blue Talisman. So I did just do some research and was curious about the formulaic breakdown of this fragrance. A lot of people talk about the dupes just missing that final quality of that sparkly effervescence. And I think it's harder to pinpoint than I had realized. There's not a lot of public concrete information out there, but I think I can confirm that it's not a aldehydic base in terms of that sparkly effervescence. One fragrance that comes to mind that does that is Coco Mademoiselle from Chanel, or some of the more feminine leaning homages as well, where aldehydes are kind of giving that really distinct sparkle, but that's not really what's done here. So I think it's really a culmination of things, and maybe what makes it so hard to really get that final detail right. For example, Ambrofix is supposed to be in here, which is a Givaudan exclusive material, in terms of patents. So I don't know what the likelihood of a dupe company getting their hands on that is. Perhaps possible. There's a lot of that part of the world of, molecule and ingredient accumulation that we just don't really know about. But if you weren't able to get that material, you would have to find even just that material itself would need a rendition of, a remaking of. So it gets more and more complicated. Same thing with musks. I don't know what kind of musks are in here specifically. If they're once again patented to a certain flavor and fragrance house, then, it's going to be another thing you have to try and recreate or get your hands on. Doing research too, another hypothesis, as well as the type of ginger and the way that ginger was extracted. and the amount being used in the fragrance. Definitely ginger can give that lift too, that sparkliness. Yeah, it seems that there is a culmination of things that need to be working in tandem to get that final sparkle that everyone's kind of looking for in the best dupe of Blue Talisman. I've never smelled the original Blue Talisman. I really do need to. Fortunately, not a lot of boutiques in my area, in the Denver area, carry Blue Talisman. I believe there is one that just newly opened up, so I'm gonna go ahead and try and get my nose on that as well. But luckily, Vegas Scents, probably the most notable person when it comes to talking about Banadir, has tried Blue Talisman, and he really does say that 40 from Banadir is one of the closest that kind of achieves more of that sparkle than any of the other renditions that he's tried before. So really, if you are looking for that most accurate representation, I do really think this is going to be solid. I love that all of the Banadirs are extracts, so when it comes to longevity and how much you're going to smell the fragrance around you in terms of that scent bubble, I think it is going to really do its job, especially for a fresh fragrance. Sometimes that can be a little tricky. Generally, it seems Blue Talisman is a little better performing than other blue fragrances, so I definitely see why it's a popular scent. It's got a lot of things going for it. It's somewhat safe, but still really in its own ballpark. It's still unique, even though it's mass appealing. The scent itself, really, that sparkling citrus, ginger, the ambro fix, all of those things working together, as I mentioned. Then it goes ahead right into the, I would call, signature pear accord. Pear is done somewhat often in fragrance because it is a byproduct of a lot of musks combining together, so you already get this pear nuance, but I think they went ahead and really fortified it. I don't know exactly what's doing that with those pear-like musks. There's definitely more going on. I would say towards more of the mid, and that's perfect though, because then you get more of that dry down from the mid into the base as the musks come out more. It's just a slightly tart pear, but just feels, I would say it comes off natural in its presentation. I don't think it's trying to be perfectly natural like a pear you would eat. Kind of like how Le Labo does fragrances, where they are synthetically created, but just the way they come off to you, your nose, and kind of the emotions they invoke, it just feels more natural. And I love that part of the fragrance lasts so long, all the way into the dry down. I would say for a blue fragrance, it kind of feels a little more meditative to me. And again, works really well in the hotter weather or just any occasion where you don't want your fragrance to be like the talk of the room in terms of how much presence it's making. But again, the scent profile, I think, will be very popular amongst other people. And then in terms of the dry down, again, talking about those musks, I have smelled a couple ex Nihilo fragrances that have a similar musk dry down, so it might be like kind of their signature backbone when it comes to the musk territory. Obviously they're going to have tons of other base notes as well in their fragrances, but like for example, Brompton's Immortals, as you get further and further and further into the dry down, there are some ambery wood still, but I can just kind of pick out that muskiness. Another fragrance that kind of has that iconic muskiness too is another 13 from Le Labo. And again, it's because all of these musks, I think, are kind of that backbone of the pear accord. So it does make sense why they're there. They're not incredibly special, but I think it is just a very universally liked combination of musks and works really well in so many fragrances. So I can't complain. I think the fragrance through and through is consistent in how enjoyable it is. I wouldn't say it's going to be in your collection for the utmost uniqueness. I think it's going to be more of like all the bases are covered extremely well, and there still is an aspect of uniqueness there. It's just not going to be like the most uber niche, ultra niche thing sitting on your sitting in your collection. But I think what it's serving, the purpose it's serving, it really makes sense why so many people like it, and why as of late it's just been the talk of the town. So many people have been so excited about all the dupes that have come out for it, and I would definitely recommend the Banadir 40 over anything else if you can get your hands on it. That really is what I want to talk about lastly. I know that for Banadir, this is likely, in their top 5 or top 10 selling fragrances. I do see that often the full bottle, the 100 ml bottle, is sold out. So if this is something you do really want, I would say just check as often as you can on the website. Interestingly enough, to the Banadir eBay store, they update the inventory differently than they do for the Banadir website. I'm not saying that the inventory itself is actually different, but for example, like I've seen Banadir 40 on eBay available, like literally 2 or 3 bottles left. because on eBay it'll tell you like when it's less than 5 of something, it'll say like, yeah, 2 left, 3 left. So there was 3 left, but then on Banadir's site they hadn't updated it to where it said they were available. It still said sold out. So you could check both locations. When I had checked this, honestly, that was like a couple months ago. I just happened to be curious and checked. But and then in terms of at this very moment of recording, let me go ahead and check. I'm just curious if it is back or not. Okay, I just did a quick check. Looks like samples are still available to go ahead and buy, but I do believe that, yeah, the full bottle is not available yet. But yeah, just keep your eyes on it. I think it is that $45 to $50 price point for 100 ml. That is a little more expensive than like say your Latafa, but I think it's around the same price as the Maison Esrar, the Legacy, right? So I really do think it's the best one. Slightly longer lasting than those as well. I have tried those from my other friends who have them. I really do think this is the one to go for if you're really sold on this DNA. But of course, as I always mention in my videos, you know, just ensure that the DNA is for you. I know people kind of feel that FOMO, or just like they feel like they're missing out on what's been talked about as of late, but really only get the DNA if it's right for you, right? You don't really need to feel like you're missing out on anything, I promise. There are so many great fragrances, you know, from the past, and there will always be fragrances that come out in the future. There's always something to look forward to. Just because something is the talk of the town, super hyped, you don't need to fall into that if you don't want to. And I think partially, you know, that's why it's taken me a long time to get to this review too. Trying all these iterations of Blue Talisman, you know, I just didn't quite feel like they were really hitting the marker for me. But now I think I do understand. It is just that finishing touch that really, I think, pushes it into something more interesting while still being versatile. So as I mentioned, you know, a few times, it really does make sense why so many people enjoy this scent profile. But of course, you know, if you don't, no judgment at all. Like, this is such a subjective hobby, and I think that's what can make it really fun. Obviously, if people have disagreements, the best thing to do is just have a respectful conversation about it, and I think a lot of people in this community do that. So whether you like this DNA or, you know, any Blue Talisman dupe, or you just want to skip this altogether, you know, I think everything's open for conversation. But I think I am team Blue Talisman now. Would I buy the original? Probably not. I think this just does such a good job from Banadir. So if there is an opportunity where I can score that full bottle, you know, I'll definitely consider it heavily. I'm definitely gonna finish this first before I make my final purchasing decision, but that's more along the lines of, I just feel like I have the right amount of bottles in my collection. And so it is harder for me to depart or purchase more bottles. You know, I'm kind of in this point where even if I love a fragrance, it really needs to be something that, like, let's say I wear it for 4 or 5 days and I can't stop thinking about it. That's where I'm gonna be like, okay, yeah, it's time to get a bottle for sure. But if a fragrance isn't doing that, you know, at this point in time, I think slowing down, enjoying what I already have is really kind of where I'm leaning towards in the moment. And, you know, that presents its own challenges with making content, but nah, it's not gonna be something that deters me from talking to all of you out there. It really is just about building the community, and I'm thankful we're all here together. So I really want to emphasize more in future videos. In this video today, please let me know what kind of content you want to see. Not that I feel absolutely lost making content, and not that I don't have my own ideas and my, you know, I get inspired off the whim all the time, but really it just comes down to, I want to make the videos that people want to see. I'm simply just here to be, you know, the translator, or to put you all on some new information, or, you know, just broaden your horizons in this hobby. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm here to make the content that I love all the time. You know, I want to make what other people want to watch. So please let me know what you feel about this video, Banadir 40, Blue Talisman DNA in general. Do you like other replications more? You know, have you compared them to Banadir 40? And then the other side of that, please let me know what you want to see me create for you. I'm just so excited to, learn from all of you and really see what people in this hobby are looking for. You know, there's a lot of creators out there. I might as well put my twist on stuff that you want to see. So I think that's the best way that we come together and, you know, form our own little community and kind of create our own string of videos that, you know, are somewhat been created. I'm not trying to be original per se, but I want to put my own touch on it. Like I said, try to bring new additions to the table, if you will. All right, I'm Patrick. It's nice to see you all again. I'll see you soon. Take care.